What could we possibly be up to right now?
This is our journey. Welcome to the Betancourt's homestead.
I would be glad to share. I have been following the whole feed catastrophe that's going on. I am not quite sure if the feed is contributing, although I do think it is suspicious that it is all the same brands. I have had a reduction in my eggs, but only because my girls are old and it's winter, and I don't usually get eggs the few weeks before the winter solstice and the few weeks after the winter solstice. We are just starting to get eggs now. We haven't changed our feed or anything. I just put a video up on YouTube on how, on our channel, on how I run my coop and how I supplement my chicken feed so that my chicks and my chickens use as little feed as possible, which is probably why I do better at feed. I have made my own chicken feed before, which was disastrous. I do not recommend doing it. I do have the recipe if you would like it. I can share it with people. But the slaughtering of the chickens when it came time was horrible, disgusting, and I stopped that night. I would recommend using, I'm using Purina layena pellets, and that seems to be working good for us. I would suggest finding a local feed store and using there. We do have one in McMinnville, Oregon that I have used and have been very happy with. And that's about it. I will continue to watch what's going on with that one store that's selling feed. And I'll give you my opinion when and if I think it's needed. I will say that in my humble opinion, if so many people are having that much of a problem and it all comes down to one or two sources of feed, then that would be enough for me to find another source. And I would go as local as possible and talking to the people about what was in it. Yanasa TV did a great video on feed and how they make animal feed and what kind of grains they use. It's not the best quality, it's going to be the less quality. So that could be why we are getting a problem with our eggs, because the feed that they use may not have enough protein in it, and that's not something that's under their control. Well, technically, it was poor growing conditions for some of the grains, and that could be a contributing factor. I would be glad to tell you what my mix was. I'll even show the recipe. Let me show you first. There's that side, and there's that side. Now, if you want to stretch it even farther, all you have to do is soak it to the night before and then feed it to them wet. They love it, but here's what they do. Each bird has their own favorite thing to eat, and they go through and pick out what they want, meaning they don't get a well-rounded diet because they're picking out and eating only what they want. So you can sit there and figure out how much of protein to put in, but if that's not what they want and they want all the carbs, they're just going to go over and eat all the carbs, and they're going to miss and forget the protein. And that's exactly what they did. When we went to slaughter, we had some of the unhealthiest looking birds. The fat on them was so disgusting and unhealthy. I got in the car that night and I drove to the feed store inland, because the feed store local to us sells Albers, and Albers, which is a Purina made product, doesn't have the right amount of protein, and it doesn't have the right ingredients, and they gorge on it instead of pecking at it. Your birds should peck at your food and then walk away and go forage. They shouldn't sit at the container going right. They should peck and go, peck and go. And I tried several brands, and the Purina layena pellet, they peck and walk away, and then they come back and eat. So we'll go through one bag in like weeks, as opposed to one bag every 5 days. Also the problem that we found with this was that we had a tree fall in the yard, and when we went to go clear up the tree and clean it up, we found all the black oiled sunflower seeds in it. Like literally all of the black oiled sunflower seeds. whoever stashed them in there must have been missing them. And they were quite a ways away from the actual coop. I mean, we're talking over 150 feet. So I love the concept. You can soak this overnight and then give it to them. My problem is they peck at what they want, and you're balancing it for a well-rounded diet. I mean, we even had the NutriBalancer and the kelp and everything that would help them, the fish meal, get everything that they needed. And they ate what they wanted. They are literally like 5-year-olds only wanting to eat the cookie and not the hamburger at the Happy Meal. Where do I get my fish meal, my kelp, and what is NutriBalancer? That is an awesome question. Let's get right into it. Basically, the fish meal and the kelp I got at a farm store. You just walk in there, you can actually pre-order it and just drive through and pick it up. That's where I got mine. The NutriBalancer was a little bit harder to find. I had to go to technically a feed store, and that one that I went to was in McMinnville. It's the one I started going back to. Now, NutriBalancer, what is that? NutriBalancer is actually all of the vitamins and the nutrients that are in the feed that you buy processed at the feed store. Those are all the things that you can't get from all of the rest of the recipes. You know, like we take vitamin A, vitamin D, niacin, whatever, all the things that we decide we want to take. It's all the stuff that's good for chickens and pets and farm animals. And that's what the NutriBalancer is. It balances out all of the nutrients into the feed that you're making. I still do not recommend making your own chicken feed. It was a horrible mishap on my end. And in fact, a lot of those recipes, videos that I was looking at that were bringing it back into play, when you go through, they've recently, in the last 2 weeks, all been putting out the same information that they do not recommend doing it to. So something I realized while I've been going back through and doing these videos for you all and looking through what's going on, we're all trying to increase our protein. Did you know that fish meal is 60% protein? So what is stopping me from going out and taking the bag of fish meal that I have, because I have a huge bag of fish meal, and sprinkling it on their chicken feed? It's 60% protein. Even if they eat a little bit that comes in contact with their chicken feed, it's still going to benefit them. Yeah, so I have been considering doing that. We are heading in because we've had a conversation about chicken feed, and we're like, you know what? Let's shake things up a little bit. Let's do a test. Even though our girls are like laying and they're older and we're not getting as many eggs, we figured we would change up the feed. So we're at Buchanan Cellars in McMinnville, and back to what we used to use a long time ago. And we did some research and found they have a 20% protein one and they have a 16% protein. So we're going to do a test for you guys all. Stay tuned in the future. You don't realize how much you miss a place until you go in and talk to everybody. But now we paid, now we get to load. So this is what we're doing, the beaver feed. This is the high protein and it's the 20%. And then we have other bags of the 16%. So we're going to be trying this first, and then we're going to move to this. So here's the test we're going to do. We're going to change the feed, same percentage, 16% to 16%, from the Purina layena pellets that we do to the beaver brand pellets, which we used to use. We're going to change the feed immediately and see if the eggs pick up. And then if they don't, we're going to start putting in some of the 20% mix in and seeing how that works. Stick along with us. It's all fun, right? It's better to test when we have the ability and the time to do the testing than always being in a state of frantic panic because nothing is working. Okay, and there is a benefit because they are both actually cheaper per bag than the Purina is. The only downfall to this is we literally have to go to an entirely new town out of our way to get it. But if it works and it's more of a benefit, then we can just have an outing once a quarter and go and pick up our feed and then go to dinner. I think you should take me to lunch today.
I think it's possible.
So we are back at Buchanan Cellars because we have done our test and our findings are, what are our findings?
They're laying eggs.
he just walks on past. They started laying eggs again. We're not quite sure if it's spring, but it is an early spring. We don't usually get it until at least more sun comes out, or if it is the feed that we've been doing. They did not start laying eggs when we changed their feed just to the 16% beaver layena feed, but they did start laying more when we added in 50-50 the 16% and the 20%. So when we upped it to 18%, they started laying more. So here's the consensus. The feed is actually cheaper here than it is when using the Purina. We're getting better laying production, and overall it requires us to take another trip, but we'll just do it every quarter. There you go. So here are the specifics. We were getting 0 to 1 eggs a day with our 8 chickens. The new girls just started laying. We changed their food to the beaver. We maybe had 1 or 2 eggs a day now. And then as soon as we added the 20% beaver mix, we started getting 8 eggs a day. But our girls are starting to lay too, the new ones. So we are seeing more eggs, just not able to give you an exact determination of it. But we are seeing more eggs. Let's talk chicken feed. More precisely, egg production and chicken feed. And for this conversation, we're going to have my chicken journal. Did you know I had a chicken journal? Yep, I have a chicken journal. The whole thing cost me 57 cents, and it is full of notes. What is it full of? It's full of 10 years of notes, because we got chickens in apparently 2013, July of 2013, and I've been keeping detailed notes on egg production ever since. So let me do some calculations and I'll get right back with you. So in this book, I total up every single day that we go out to get chickens, how many chickens are in the yard, how many attempts on animals that we've had. October of 2017, we had 1 root cougar attempt, 1 raccoon food theft, and we had 32 chickens, 29 of which were hens, 3 were roosters, and we got 233 eggs in that month. Let me pick up my pen, and then we're going to look and compare at the differences between October of that year and October of 2022. We're going old school. So, consulting the chicken journal, in October of 2017, we had 29 hens, and we got an average of 8.03 eggs a hen that month. In October of 22, we had 6 chickens, hens, and they laid an average of 18.3 eggs that month. That's different. January of 2018, we had 29 hens, and they laid an average of 8.45 eggs. January 23, 6 hens, and they've laid an average of 2.16 per hen of eggs. We've definitely saw a drop, but I'm looking through the records, and we pretty much see increases and drops and increases and drops. Usually they're followed by an animal attack, they drop, and winter storms, they tend to drop, and heat, they tend to drop. So I probably should have kept track of the heat temperatures, because whenever we have a heat wave come through, which is once every few years, they stop laying, almost like stop altogether. And then they pick up after the heat dies down. But in this winter, it was really freezing cold and it was snowing, and they definitely reacted to that. But then again, we did add in the beginning of February, we added more protein into their diet, and they picked up their egg production. So we're going to have to go see. We'll be watching this from here on out, won't we? Yeah, it's very interesting. They're very delicate creatures.